Megan is asking me how I would respond when someone says it's the past, get over it, specifically like the person who harmed you. And then she also goes on to say that she doesn't want to cut ties because there's a language barrier. She also goes on to say that her parents are separated and she's a verbal processor and has a very deeply rooted like misunderstanding wound, or like the feeling of being misunderstood, and usually freezes when she gets the move on response because it makes her feel like she needs to question herself. So you asked me what I would do, and you're not gonna like my answer because it's what you said you don't want to do, but what I would do is I would go no contact. And I recognize that that's not necessarily what everybody can do or is able to do for a multitude of reasons. So I'll give some other suggestions as well, but I want to explain why I would go no contact. And that is because regardless of a language barrier, telling somebody that they need to get over the past, regardless of their understanding of language, is still an incredibly dismissive thing to say to somebody. It is possible, even without a language barrier, or even with a language barrier, to be able to apologize and take accountability for one's actions. Any form of dismissing somebody when they tell you that you've harmed them is never okay, especially from a parent. This is actually something that we call DARVO, and DARVO stands for deny, attack, and then reverse victim and offender. So from what you described, it sounds like your father is using this, because the deny part can also be like dismissing. It doesn't just have to be deny. It's really anything to redirect the conversation away from what they did, deflecting as well. So this is a way to deflect from taking accountability himself. And then the accusation is like implying that there's something wrong with you for not being able to get over this, when of course nobody is easily able to get over abuse from their family members, especially parents, when they grew up as a child in a very vulnerable state where they should have been able to depend on their parents. Their parents were their only people that they were able to look to for guidance, and they were harmed by those people. Telling somebody to get over it is incredibly insensitive and actively abusive, not just insensitive. It is a form of manipulation and abuse. And then the fact that you're saying that you leave that conversation questioning yourself shows me that he is completing the DARVO process of reversing victim and offender by probably saying something along the lines of making it seem like he's the one being victimized now. Like he just wants to have a good relationship with you, but you can't get over this. So you're the one who's causing problems here. You're the offender. He's really the victim. And you're never going to be able to have a fulfilling relationship with somebody like that, regardless of if your parents are separated or not. I have no idea what your relationship with your mother looks like, so maybe that would be an option to reach out to her. It's not worth it, in my opinion, to preserve a relationship with a family member who's like this, because they will never truly see you or be able to emotionally support you or be there for you in big moments. And every piece of information you share with them about yourself, they will find a way to use it against you or to one-up you in some way. If you still decide, you don't want to cut ties for whatever reason, what you need to do is emotionally separate yourself from this person. Meaning that you probably need to do something called low contact, which is where you pretty much cut out all conversation with them that isn't initiated by that person. And when you are communicating with them, you keep it as surface level and short and sweet as possible. It's not going to feel like a real fulfilling relationship. Not that this one is feeling fulfilling either, but for me, that was the first step I had to take. And then it got to the point where even in those conversations that should have been, not activating, things that are like not really controversial whatsoever, like just me talking about my job and what I do day to day in tech, my mom would still find ways to make that make herself be a victim in that situation because I wasn't talking about something that was relevant to her. And that's quite often what happens for people in these situations. The other thing I would suggest is to ask yourself why you want a relationship with him. Not just why you don't want to end it, but what is he providing for you? What is he giving you? Or is it what you're hoping he will give you someday? Because I'm very confident in saying that it is highly unlikely that he will ever provide you with the support that you're looking for, with the approval that you're looking for, with the love that you're looking for. Unfortunately, you're going to have to provide that for yourself, likely through reparenting yourself. So other suggestions I would make is start seeing a certified trauma therapist if possible to help you walk through all of this if you aren't already seeing one. And I say certified trauma therapist because the wound that you're talking about is a traumatic wound, and it's really common for people who grew up in these circumstances. I very much had that wound of like being afraid of being misunderstood, because I was so intentionally misunderstood by everybody my whole life. My family, because they were emotionally manipulative, but also my peers, because I was autistic and I didn't know it. And it's a very difficult wound to heal and start to move past. And I needed my therapist to be able to do that. I also would strongly suggest reading this book, Shadow Daughter, which is a memoir by Harriet Brown. However, she also is somebody who did studying in the topic of estrangement. She has a doctorate in it, so it's not just her personal experience, it's her experience parsed with interviews from the process of her getting her doctorate, as she did interviews on this topic, so that you can kind of see like common themes that happen with people who are in various levels of estrangement, because low contact is also considered a form of estrangement. And I would also suggest the book Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents by Lindsay Gibson, Dr. Lindsay Gibson, because it addresses this exact scenario and gives you all the options of ways that you can choose to approach it. But the top one, if you don't want to go no contact with them, is you have to accept that you're never going to have a meaningful relationship with them, and you're going to have to manage them like they are a child for the rest of your life. And if you're not able to do that, you're not able to have conversations where you're completely emotionally withdrawn with them, it's going to keep ending in this cycle. And you don't deserve that. You deserve to have a parent who cares for you and loves you and is able to provide that support for you. But unfortunately, your parent is not able, or is not ever going to be able to do that. And only they are the ones who can choose to change to be able to do that if they want to. That's not something that we can make them. It's not something we can convince them to. Unfortunately, no matter what you do, you're not going to be able to convince your parents to love you, to change, and to be the parent that you really need them to be. And I'm sorry.